Hello, everybody, and welcome in. This is Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and you are listening to the Fantasy Football Game Plan. I want to come up with a little banner, Jeremy, that says insert theme music here because it's so weird in these intro shows. I don't have the theme music ready just yet, still working on it. And after all the shows I've made on my own podcast, it goes down to a little formula, and I introduce myself, and it's like, oh, wait, we don't have the theme music. So
Well, that's fine with me. I just hope it's not an invitation to sing the theme music because that would go horribly wrong.
that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make each of my guests sing their intro.
Nice.
That would be fun. So I guess we will get into it. As I said, this is the Fantasy Football Game Plan. And this week we are kicking off before we start our live shows on Wednesday, September 6th, the night before Thursday Night Football kickoff. I believe we're scheduled tentatively to go live at 8 p.m. Eastern. This week, it's all intros to the people who will be joining the team here. Today, we have Jeremy Shulman. Jeremy, thank you for joining me, man. It's great to have you on the team.
Yeah, appreciate it. We've done a few of these, a few of your pods, and had a great time. So let's just do it the entire year, and talk some fantasy, talk some reality football. It's going to be a good season. What are we, like a week away? I think.
Yeah, I
at
think
this
it's
point.
exact.
So
It's Thursday. Yeah. Oh no, it's Wednesday. We're a week from our show, but it's not. It's just over a week for the first game. But you know what I'm learning the last week or so. Editing and all that was a lot easier during the off season when nobody was doing anything. I'm sitting there, I'm like, for every article I write, there's an article that has to be edited, and I'm going, oh my God, there's not, I must have done 20 of them yesterday. I just run out of time in the day. All of a sudden, people are writing like freaking madmen. It's insane. So,
and I agree. And I don't know about you, but trade offers are coming in dynasty leagues. People are trying to get those last second trades in before the season starts. And
I'm in 73 leagues, I think. I don't think I've had a trade offer yet. Not one in any format. Not redraft, not dynasty, like nothing. I don't think I have. I don't think I've had a trade offer. I've sent a few that have been declined, but I don't think I don't know. The leagues I'm in, my home leagues, some of my home leagues and work leagues, they're not all that active. So
yeah, I hear that.
I also have learned too, at some point within the last maybe the first year I did this, nobody cared. The last 6 months or a year, I find especially in the non-industry leagues, people won't trade with me anymore. The second I got my name in on an article, or I got, the second they're like, oh, there's a big name, Ian Hartitz is on his podcast, or Dave Richard, he must know what he's talking about. Nobody will trade with me anymore.
Yeah,
and I don't even
you have to take a loss.
Yeah, I gotta make trades. Like I've made 2 or 3 trades this offseason, and they were both trades where if you plug them in a trade calculator, I was taking the loss. Nobody will just trade me straight up anymore. So I gotta take gambles. But I guess we should get into some of the questions so we can get to know you here before our first show. All right, let's get started with, how did you get your start in fantasy football?
Well, fantasy football in general. I was on Jesse Muller's podcast recently talking about a similar thing. I had to go back to answer this question and look at my Yahoo history, and started on Yahoo, I think in 2004, I believe, and had a few sporadic leagues.
You ever look back and see the first teams you had? I looked back at one. The first 2 draft picks I ever made on Yahoo were Sean Alexander and Brett Favre.
Nice.
That tells you how long it's been.
I haven't checked it, but I do remember considering LaDainian Tomlinson. I remember the year or two that Jamal Charles was huge. I remember CJ2K, right? Chris Johnson over there on the Titans. So it's been a long time. But in the beginning, when I first started, I was just kind of investigating what this thing was, and I didn't really know anybody who played. And then it was a couple of years later where I got into my first home league and felt like the experienced one in the group. And I think the next year, like, the work league started up. So, it was just this thing that built on itself over time. And then when I moved out of the States about 8 years ago, it was a great way for me to keep in touch with all my friends back home, because
What'd you move out of the
nobody.
States for? Work or?
Yeah. So it was my wife's job. I'm a writer now. I used to be a teacher in the States. So happy enough to leave that job. It wasn't for me. Um, and I basically latched on with a couple of different companies, but we left with the opportunity with my wife's work. And really, I've been working from home for the last 8 years because you can write anywhere, right?
Yeah.
But when we went to the UK, nobody was into football. I think the NFL just started going over there, so nobody was really into the NFL. And then, certainly over here in Europe, now in Amsterdam, there's just very little interest. So it was partly to kind of hold on to sport and to fantasy, but also, of course, to kind of hold on to the friendships back in the States, because we are so much more into it than they are over here. Although there are some pockets for sure, of people who are into it. I know you see that on Twitter
Yeah.
with the UK contingent, especially. Um, but yeah, it was just, it started off as a friendship thing, and then as the league progressed, I started doing write ups for my
Yeah.
home leagues, and I just got really into it. I think especially during COVID, I just kind of like would spend hours doing research and writing things up because what else are you doing? Um,
Yeah.
and uh, you know, uh, I got a lot of really excellent feedback from the 11 other guys in the group, and I was like, well, maybe more than 11 people would like to read stuff like this, and maybe I'd like to write for more than 11 people. So that's how I kind of got together with Tom and the league winners, and here we are today.
It's kind of funny. It's kind of how I don't do much sports betting. Single dad, there's not a whole lot of extra money to just gamble freely, especially with my 95 different buy-ins for fantasy. But that's kind of how I got
Yeah.
into the limited, or the little amount of sports betting I do actually participate in.
Mhm.
I did. My best friend back in maybe 2016, 2017 moved to Germany after college or after
Okay.
university. And so we decided, we each put in I think it was $20 into a bank account every week. He'd put it in because he had to transfer it to Canada. And then I just go and we'd play a ticket, whether it was props, point spread. And we just have a couple of tickets and it would give us something to do because, we barely talk to each other in different continents. So
Yeah.
I definitely get that, trying to use it to stay in contact. Okay, so you said you started at the league winners. Where are the places you're working now for fantasy, and what do you do at these places?
Yeah, it's mostly league winners. I'm a senior writer, mostly focusing on Dynasty, although it is redraft season. Going to do my best to put together some Dynasty content during the season in terms of buy sell, but there's not a whole lot. In fact, I was listening to a podcast the other day where they're like, okay, our last episode's coming up, and then we're shutting off our Dynasty podcast. And I was like, oh, wow.
Well,
That's,
because nobody listens during the season. You can say,
yeah,
this guy's a great buy for next year. Hold on. And everyone's too short sighted
yeah,
to give a damn. It's
yeah,
the
I
exact,
hear that.
like, in the off season, you see it lets you know when to sell guys, though. All these
Mhm.
veterans, nobody gave a shit about them all off season. You couldn't pay to give them away if you were on a rebuild. Now
Mhm.
everyone's like you said, sending you trade offers. You get to week 1 though, where points actually have to be scored. Nobody gives a shit about their dynasty value next year. It's what can you do for me this week? So that's
Right.
yeah. Nobody cares about dynasty. That's
No,
why.
I mean it's a redraft mindset during the year for sure. But at the same time, I really hate running backs, and so
Yeah.
I'm loading up on guys like Latavius Murray, Ty Chandler, all these guys who maybe Miles Gaskin throws a little bit of cold water on that, but just signing in Minnesota. But
Where's Murray right now?
Murray's on Buffalo,
Is he
and I
okay?
think Damian Harris is still working out some kind of injury there.
Ah,
So it's kind of like those guys. Deonta Foreman is a big one too, although he may be on the outs and he's hurt now, so maybe that wasn't a good bet. But taking those bets now on these aging, terrible running backs who are an injury away from value, right? And then just being able to turn them over in season. The amount of times in the last couple of years I've been able to sell a terrible running back who had a 2 or 3 game stretch run for a second round pick is
2 years
has
ago,
dramatically impacted, positively impacted my success rate in Dynasty.
2 years ago, I managed to flip Matt Breida, who I think was he on the Giants? Flip Matt Breida for a pick that would become George Pickens. So I don't mind it, but it's like, oh, why do you have these? Exactly. I think Latavius Murray was on the team too. I don't remember who I flipped him for, but literally, I just had these guys that I'm flipping, just like what was the house flipping show there? What's it called? I forget. Anyways.
I don't know, actually.
That's how I am with these running backs, though. You flip them, and you get picks, and then you get 3 or 4 of these second-round picks and try and trade up for a late first or something, and that's exactly what it is. It's just a process. Yeah. Next up, we have for real football, what's your favorite team, and what is your favorite player? Doesn't have to be a current player.
I'm a Patriots fan. I have been a Patriots fan from New York. I grew up about an hour north of New York City. So when I'll keep this story very short, but I was about 11 years old. Had some sort of need to rebel against my father's tradition of trying to raise me as a Jets fan, and the firing of Pete Carroll as Jets coach, which I was like far too upset about as a prepubescent individual. And I decided that the next team that beat the Jets the next year was going to be the team that I rooted for. It was going to be my team for life. The Jets started out that next season in their terrible stretch run of being terrible for the last 30 years until maybe this year.
Yeah. I feel like it worked out well for you. Could you imagine though if the team that beat them had been like the Cleveland Browns or something? You left it all the chance and got lucky.
Well, listen, that next season they were terrible. They went like 4-5-0 to start the season. Yeah. And they played the likes of the Dolphins, who were decent, and the Bills, who I believe at the time were Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas.
Was this their 4 years of losing the Super Bowl?
Yeah. So it was just at the end, right? That was 90s. So it's right around the same time, because 81, so 92-ish, probably 1992, 93. So yeah, that's right in that period. And they were great, right? And everyone assumed they were going to win one. I had family in Buffalo. I was like, great, I'll be a Bills fan. And the Jets beat the Bills inexplicably. And, the team to beat them were the New England Patriots, coached by Pete Carroll. And later that season, Drew Bledsoe had, which is still, I think, somehow, I think it's still a record. He went 45 or 70 through 70 passes in a game.
Jesus Christ.
And just went absolutely nuclear with nobody there catching the ball for the Pats. And I just kind of fell in love, and it's been a good run, like you said.
Alrighty, what is your favorite format to play in fantasy? Do you have something you like you enjoy the most?
It's Dynasty now. It used to be redraft, but just the strategy, the market behind the Dynasty side is just so much more enjoyable to me. And it's got to be super flex, tight end premium preferred, PPR, if not tiered PPR, is kind of the way that I prefer to play the game. It's just as balanced, I think, as you can get without, some of these Scott Fishbowl settings, or, what they're doing in, I think it's the Polly's playoff, where they just have the points scored per reception are based on how far down the field. So you're like, have to be like in your ADOT spreadsheets just to kind of figure out who to pick next.
See, right. Like you said, with Scott Fishbowl, I play in so many of these crazy analyst industry leagues. I go to like my work or my family league, and it's your regular redraft 1 QB. And I'm like, this is relaxing. I've come to appreciate those leagues where it's like, what? I don't have to fight for a QB. I can take one in the 12th round. And it's just, it's so relaxing and refreshing. And then, you have guys that fall to you in the 8th that you couldn't get in the 3rd in a normal league. And conversely, there's guys that should go in the 10th that go in the 3rd round. Or I had one QB league the other day, my work redraft league. Someone took Patrick Mahomes at 102. So that was nice. Then all the quarterbacks are gone by the end of the 1st round, because everyone assumed, hey, this guy took a quarterback. Let's do it. It's nice though every once in a while to see the the non-normal leagues. I get so sick of Superflex after a while. I get it's the most optimal way to play, but good God, do I get sick of the QB fight nonstop every week. It's like with tight end premium where you have like the super premium leagues where it just becomes who can play bully tight end, and I hate it.
Yeah, that's insane. Like if you're going 2x on the TEP, that's no way to play for me. But I have a few leagues like that.
I've never done a league on League Tycoon, and I joined one the other day through DLF, and it was a Superpowers league, and it was double tight end premium. But so I got the last pick of the second last pick of the first round where you had to draft your coach. The coach I got was tight end premium. So then I have my regular tight end is tight end premium or double tight premium. And then I get an extra tight end flex spot, which is triple premium. And somehow they allowed me to stack Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews.
Nice. Well done.
Yeah. So well, thank you.
That's insane, man. Mark Andrews is ridiculously undervalued this year
when I'm getting triple points
format.
He is.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So, I'm sitting there and I'm watching, I'm going, these guys must not have looked at what cards I coach I drafted, because if they seen that I have tight end premium, there's no way they'd let me get Kelce and Andrews, but it is what it is. So
nice.
All righty, let's get back to some fantasy here. I need one must have and one must avoid player for you this year in redraft.
I hate to do this to you, but I don't hate to do it. I mean, it's Calvin Ridley, man. You gotta take Calvin Ridley, and I think since we talked about this the first
He's
time,
your must-have?
Yeah, he is.
How do I mute your mic here? Just continue. Keep talking about Calvin Ridley. This is all we need to hear. There we go. That's the best thing I've ever heard anyone say about Calvin Ridley.
Oh man, it's God, I mean, ever since we talked about him, I think it was maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. I just continue to see him climbing up the ranks. He's at like the back end of the third round now in 1 QB leagues. It's pretty ridiculous, but it makes sense. It's where he should have been all along. And he should even be higher, right? Right now, he's consensus across a couple of sites, according to Fantasy Pros, consensus wide receiver 16. Puts him at the 3-4 turn at 37 overall. But he's a wide receiver 1, right? Double-digit touchdowns, I think is look, we don't know what's going to happen with touchdowns. They're super volatile. But if anyone's scoring touchdowns in this offense through the air, it's Ridley and it's Evan Ingram. I'm not sure who else is getting in the end zone there consistently. And then, he is the number 1 target. He looks great in camp. He's the guy we know him to be. He's not too old. He's just going to smash this year. Peterson is going to show properly how to use him. And, what was he? Wide receiver 5 back with an aging Matt Ryan a couple of years ago who totally fell off a cliff. Now he's with an elite offensive mind, with an elite and ascending quarterback. The sky's the limit, man. If he finished wide receiver 1 overall, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think he's a near lock for wide receiver 12 or above.
You're a sick motherfucker. Okay. Who is your must avoid? I'm going to pretend you said Calvin Ridley was your must avoid, but for our actual listeners, who is your real must avoid?
Probably Travis Etienne. He's just too high. We'll stick with the Jags. We'll go all Jags. Why not? Tank Bigsby is just everything they wanted him to be and more. I wouldn't be surprised if Bigsby outscores Etienne in fantasy points this year.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bigsby outscores Calvin Ridley in fantasy points this year. I'm just saying.
Man, I can't wait till week 17 when we're on the group pod talking Calvin Ridley for offensive player of the year. It's going to be fantastic.
No, I'm going on vacation after week 16, so good luck with that. Good luck with that.
But yeah, Etienne, I just don't see it. Again, too many mouths to feed. Bigsby looks to have a handle on a split backfield there. Are they giving ETN the goal line looks? Potentially. But I just think his cost is a little outrageous. I'm not sure exactly where he's going, but I'm pretty much fading him, and I have been all summer.
All right. Well, to wrap it up, I have time for 2 or 3 if you have them. Bold predictions. What do you got for this year?
Let's see. Let's do something else that you're gonna hate.
Oh God!
Alexander
Don't say.
Madison.
No, he said it before I could say. Don't say Madison. Oh my God!
Top
Sorry. Go.
15 running back.
Good God.
For sure. He's going to get all the work. That offense is too good. Look, Gaskin just came into town, right? You have Ty Chandler in there. They're going to take some of the passing work for sure, right? I don't expect Madison to see Dalvin Cook levels of targets. But
you know what I find amazing right now? In the league winners draft that we're doing, you pick right after me, and we've had 3 or 4 times where I was like, I forget what it was. The one round, I was like, okay, next round when it gets back to me, I'm going to try and stack Andrews and Lamar, and you did it. And the next round, I'm like, I'm going to do this, and you did it. I'm like, oh, we must have the exact same rankings. We do not have the exact same rankings. So I have no idea how you've been sniping me so much in that league, because we are opposite on pretty much every player so far.
I play the board, man, and I just do my best to kind of feel out the draft. So whatever my rankings are, it's really just a matter of how the team ends up being constructed. But like, for example, I had Andrews and Waller just fell and the value is too good. And I want a tight end who's the number one target in their offense. And if, those guys can swap in and out, if somebody gets injured, great. If, Waller sits in my flex all year, great. Right. In tight end premium, I'll take that. But
yeah, I see something funny. I'm using the Dynasty Nerds Dynasty GM right now. I like at the end of the year to program in all my leagues to see my ownership, like rostership rates.
Yep.
It normally takes about 10 seconds per team to load it in. I click load on all my teams. It's been going for like 14 minutes. It's still loading.
Everyone's back in the game, man.
No, it's not. It's just taking that many teams. It's still going about 10 seconds per team. It's just got there's that. I'm only on sleeper, and it's been like 14 minutes of loading my sleeper teams in. Oh my God! Sorry.
I think I am proudly under 20 dynasty teams. I don't know if that's actually true. It may be 19 or 20 at this point. But yeah, and that's too much. It's really a lot to handle. So 70 leagues, I don't know, man.
My first year, I was in 7, and I said, oh, that was too many. I'm not going to do more than 2 or 3 leagues next year. The next year, I had 42. And I said, at the end of last year, I said 42 was way too many. I'm not doing more than like, my 3 or 4 work leagues, Scott Fishbowl. I'm like keeping it to like 5 or 6 this year. Yeah, I'm at 72.
Listen, man, addicts recognize addicts, so
it is. Well, no, it's a lot of them are for like content or networking. A lot of them I don't actually pay that much attention to, and like I have like 12 FC eliminator teams. So, all right, well, let's wrap up. Well, you got some bold predictions. Let's get back to that since I've gone off the rails again.
So you didn't like Ridley, you didn't like Madison. How about Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery are both top 18 running backs at the end of the season?
I'm good with that. I like it. Yeah, I think it might be tough for both of them to get in, but I think they're both definitely top 24. I like them both.
I think both at cost are great. That offensive line is great. The offense is going to move the ball. They're going to have plenty of opportunities. Monty with the goal line work, Gibbs with the receiving work. Who is that? Kamara, Ingram, right? Everyone's trying to make that comparison and find that fantasy gold mine of a backfield again. I think there's a really good chance there in Detroit this year, especially with there's really no goal line threat through the air. Laporta maybe, but we haven't seen it. So I'll hang my hat on that. And then how about Tyreek Hill gets his 2,000 yards this year that he's been clamoring for. I think he was at 1,700, a little over 1,700 last year. He's just a monster. Full year of Tua that could put him over Calvin Ridley. That could push Calvin Ridley down to wide receiver 2. That happens overall. But I think maybe the boldest one. I'm not sure how bold it is because people are drafting him for this upside. But Justin Fields goes absolutely nuclear on the ground. shatters, is it still Lamar's QB rushing record?
Oh, you
I
had me
believe.
totally off track there. I was still, I had wide receiver in my head, and I'm going, Justin Jefferson's going to shatter the rushing record? And he said Fields. You had me still on wide receiver there. And when you said it, I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? Gotcha.
But no, the last one would be Fields goes nuclear, shatters the Lamar's rushing record, throws for, mid 20 something touchdowns, and becomes the QB1 for fantasy at the end of the season.
Spicy. All righty. Well, that wraps up the getting to know Jeremy Shulman with some players I really fucking hate. That's the great way to start my morning, talking Calvin Ridley and Alexander Madison. I was better off going to work.
I try to please, man.
Yeah, thanks. All righty. Well, this has been Fantasy Football Game Plan Intro of Jeremy Shulman. Once again, I am Aaron St. Dennis, the FF Mad Scientist, and thank you for tuning in. We go live Wednesday, September 6th, approximately 8 p.m., subject to change, so check right in. That will be our week 1 preview. Thank you to Jeremy for joining me, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Take care, and we'll see you live on Wednesday night.
Thanks, Aaron.